You know, I think between this and As Above, So Below, I just can't trust a Rotten Tomato score, especially when it comes to horror movies, worth anything. I've been lied to. The Conjuring. So The Conjuring centers around this married couple, Ed and Lorraine Warren, which is a real life couple. They're a couple of couple of demonologists. Basically, they're like paranormal investigators. They work with the Catholic Church. They do exorcisms and stuff like that. And they are tasked to investigate this house that this other family moves into. I watched the movie last night. Can't remember the family's name, but they move into this house, and then weird things start happening. Like things are moving around, hearing voices. There's a presence that is not human. But what's funny about things not being human is at the beginning of the movie, they set up the Annabelle doll, and they make it very clear that there is something inhuman that lives in the Annabelle doll, because a human spirit, the spirit of somebody who used to be alive, isn't as strong as we see, or as the people that had the Annabelle doll describe Annabelle to have been. That does not remain consistent. The main reason that I say that it's not consistent is because, like, of course, like, what you see the spirits do starts out, you know, harmless enough. But then it gets to the point where they're just picking things up and throwing them across the room, and there's full-on possession, and there really has to be an exorcism performed and all that stuff. And it's like, okay, if that is the limit as to what a human spirit can do, what can an inhuman spirit do? I want to see the type of Super Saiyan Nine Tails type of stuff that they get up to. That sounds more interesting to me. I guess that's what the Annabelle movies are for. I'm not doing an Annabelle movie in this series. I just want you to understand that I have no interest in the Annabelle franchise. But one thing that I do think is interesting is that Lorraine, they allude to a previous exorcism that they performed before this movie takes place, and in that exorcism, Lorraine was affected, and from what I can tell, like, maybe some sort of spiritual residue leached onto her, and now she has like an extra sensory ability, and so she's like kind of more sensitive towards spiritual things than the average person would be, which is actually executed in some pretty interesting ways. Like, there's a part where she's talking to Ed, and then you see these legs in the background where somebody clearly hung themselves, and that's the kind of subtlety that you don't get a lot of in this movie. Most scares are just loud, in your face, jump scares type thing, and I don't like that. I like things being subtle, where I see it, it's definitely meant to be creepy, but you don't call so much attention to it that it becomes like a parody of itself. That's all I really want. That's what I was told I was going to get in this movie. There were like 3 of them. All in all, this movie is kind of like what would happen if Poltergeist, the original Poltergeist from, I actually don't know what year, and The Exorcist rolled into one movie, but in the rolling process, they just dropped all the interesting elements from both films, and you just ended up with an almost 2-hour-long bore fest. There's a part that I legitimately laughed so hard at. Well, there's a couple of parts in this movie that I found hilarious that definitely weren't supposed to be, but just the way they were executed. But the main one that sticks out in my mind is when Lorraine, like, she falls through the floorboard and like in this like crawl space behind the wardrobe that was in the house when they moved in. She falls, but she falls for like 10 seconds, so she had to fall like 50, 60 feet, right? And she falls and lands on her feet and falls over and just bumps her head, and she's otherwise okay. And I'm like, no, if you fall that far, your femurs are up into your rib cage, dude. They're tickling your clavicles. Like, you can't just fall that far and land on your feet and be okay. And I know that because I went through a haunted house back in 2018, and on the second floor there was a way you could like jump out and land on this crash pad, and that was one of the exits to the house. And it was maybe like a 15, maybe 20 foot at the most fall, right? I fell. I was supposed to land on my back to land on the crash pad, but I didn't turn enough and I landed on my feet. My ankles were done. They didn't break, but I was in a lot of pain for the rest of the night. If I landed on a crash pad and hurt myself that bad, falling like 40% of what she fell, she landing on a hardwood floor on her feet, I think wearing heels or something like that, she would have hurt herself pretty bad. Maybe she wouldn't have died, but she definitely would have went snap, and that'd have been it. That was so unbelievable to me. And one thing that they talk about earlier in the movie is that, like, in order to be possessed by a demonic entity or demonic presence, you typically have to be the most emotionally or psychologically vulnerable person in the group of people in order to be possessed. So, of course, this all culminates in the mother being possessed, which I would not have thought of her as the most emotionally or psychologically vulnerable. I would have thought of one of the kids. but maybe that would have been too similar to The Exorcist, so they didn't want to do that. Or maybe, considering that it is based on a true story, maybe that's just how everything went down. But the exorcism sequence in this movie was just really boring. And I can't pretend that it was. Although I really didn't enjoy this movie very much. I'm sorry for all the people out there who probably really did. I mean, this movie became a franchise for a reason. But if it weren't for that, I'd say that this wouldn't be all that memorable. You probably wouldn't remember it in a couple days. But apparently a lot of people really remembered it because it became a franchise. So I don't really know what to say. But that's my rating, and I'm going to stick to it. Alright? So The Conjuring, have you seen it? Probably. What do you think about it? Whatever it is, whatever you believe, comment below and educate me. As always, if you want more videos from me, go ahead and click just about anywhere on the screen, and also check out my good friend Jedi, because he's also reviewing this movie. Maybe he liked it. That's the thing. We're not checking with each other to see like what our thoughts are on the movie. We're just gonna watch each other's videos and find out. So be like me. Be like me. Just go watch him. I'll see you soon.